All right, good morning, Gateway. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I had a hard time figuring out how to get live this morning. I was trying to do it in Safari, and you can only go live in Google Chrome. I'm going to talk for a minute while folks may be joining us. I told Diane this morning it might just be she and I. Let me be the first to wish you a Merry Christmas. Only 365 days till next Christmas. I don't know about you, but the older I get, the shorter and shorter the distance between Christmases. And it seems like a week and a half ago we had uh, last year's Christmas, although 2020 lasted, um, that this year lasted 5 years, I think. Okay, so December 27th. I am personally right now doing for my devotionals. I brought my Bible down here with me. I'm doing the book of Daniel these first few weeks in the new year, and I'm using this Bible study guide for the book of Daniel. Let me give you a little backgrounding. I'm gonna share something really short this morning, but short but impactful. Um, I'm doing Daniel because a few weeks ago we started a series that we did through Advent. We called it More Than Expected, and we talked about the birth of Jesus. And the first Sunday of that series, I did a kind of setup sermon. If you were with us, you might remember I talked about the time between the Testaments, between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Um, and part of that sermon, I talked about the book of Daniel. And honestly, I personally got so fascinated by that, I decided to do my next devotional series in Daniel. So that's what led me to this Bible study. A little backdrop for Daniel. The series before this past series we did another series we called Not How You Imagined, and we looked at the prophet Malachi. And in the first sermon of that series, I did a kind of setup for Malachi, a historical setup. And we ran the time back from Malachi about a century and a half to the 6th century BC, when Babylon was flexing its muscles and conquering much of the world. And that during the time when they swept through the part of the Middle East that borders the Mediterranean Sea, including Palestine, they did that in the late 6th century BC, and they conquered the city of Jerusalem in 587 BC. All right, I know it's a little early in the morning for all of this, but during that time when Babylon conquered Jerusalem, a part of the city, the residents left and went to Egypt. Part of the city was killed in the process, and the remaining, especially nobles, they were forcefully migrated. They were transplanted from Jerusalem all the way to the city of Babylon. You may remember that. Well, a part of that migration was a group of young nobles, one of whom was Daniel. And Daniel and his three friends were essentially, in prison, kind of under house arrest. And they got the notice of Babylonian officials who thought they were literally, they noticed them because they were young, good looking, and seemed to be intelligent. So they pulled them aside for this special program that included nobles, similar nobles from other conquered peoples throughout the world. They put them in this program where they would learn Babylonian language, they would learn Babylonian culture, Babylonian customs, and maybe they could become part of the official court entourage. So Daniel and his friends were in this. They were in this program, and Daniel chapter 1 describes this. And some of you may know this story, but in Daniel chapter 1, they're informed that they're going to be included in this program, and they're given the best diet in the world to eat, the fine food from the king's table and wine. And Daniel goes to one of his handlers, and he basically said, well, I'll start reading in verse 8 of chapter 1. He says, Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Daniel had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel and his friends, please test your servant for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servant in accordance with what you see. So I hope you're following this. So they don't want to be defiled by the king's food. They ask permission just to eat vegetables and drink water. And they ask the official to make this a test and see what we look like. And so the official says, okay, he agrees to it. He agrees to test them for 10 days. And at the end of the time, they look great, and the official says, okay, you can do this. All right, a long way to go to make a short point, but one of the commentaries that I was looking at said this about that process from Daniel. Small issues like diet often have implications for larger issues like loyalty. Small issues often have implications for larger issues. So sometimes the small decisions that we make to do or to not do something have profound implications for larger issues. In this case, Daniel's diet had implications for his obedience and his loyalty to God. So the beginning of next year, we're going to do a new series that we're calling Ingredients for a Better You, and we're going to talk in part about this. You know, let's commit ourselves this year to 2021 to making the right small decisions, because they make a dramatic difference over time in our trajectory. You know, if you start at the Los Angeles airport and you set a course for New York City, you just have to adjust that course by the smallest amount, and you will end up instead in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles away by the time you fly to the other side of the country. Because small issues over time can make a big difference in larger and more important issues. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about ingredients for a better you, and part of what we're going to be talking about is this. We're going to be looking at Jesus' process of discipling others. How did Jesus develop others? Not what did he teach them, and not what did he do, and who was he? Those are all fascinating topics that we've talked about many times. But this time we're going to be looking at what Jesus did to develop people, because he was the greatest leader in the history of the world. So we should be able to take principles from how he developed people and use those in our own personal development and in our development of others. So we'll be talking about, you know, making small adjustments and making small changes that will have a dramatic effect over the long run. I want to encourage you today. Gina has posted for us on mygateway.life a reflection in the new year. It's just a contemplative exercise that you can do personally, or we would really encourage you to do it with your group if you jump on a Zoom call today, or if some of you get together as a group to do this New Year's reflection together. You can find it as a card on mygateway.life. And Michelle Bowden has just put together some questions and some interaction that will allow us to do some thinking about this past year, what a challenging year that was. And, you know, this will help us, encourage us to reflect on what God taught us this past year, what came out of this past year, and then also look forward and reflect on next year as well. I've got a feeling that 2021 is going to be a great year. I'm optimistic enough to believe that we're going to return to something like normal, right? Even though normal will not be normal anymore. And what's the process going to be for us moving toward normal? For us as individuals, for us as families, and for us as a community of believers. It's going to be a great year. So let's set ourselves up to make some small adjustments, course corrections that over the course of the year will have a dramatic impact on who we are and how we serve God and what we become. Man, it's good, honestly, to imagine you on the other side of the screen. I have to say again, I desperately miss seeing folks, and really sorry to have not done Christmas Eve together, but you know, it is what it is. So thank you all for joining me this morning, and do the reflection if you would. Think about doing the reflection. All right, blessings to everyone. I need to figure out how to get off.